My name is Carol Da Costa. I'm a lawyer and I practice in Jamaica, mainly in Kingston and St. Catherine. I do go to St. Thomas if the money is good. I am what is called an advocate, which means I persuade, mainly in the criminal courts of Jamaica. I also practice in the civil courts. I also do conveyancing, which is negotiation and transfer of property. I do also contract, drafting, negotiations, etc. Personal injuries also. I am doing this vlog for the purpose of edifying my countrymen. I find that too many Jamaicans are not aware of their rights and their obligations, so that they are abused many times by agents of the state, in particular police officers and transport authority personnel. So I want you to know what your rights are, what your obligations are, so you can protect yourself. I also want you to understand the role and value of counsel in your life, so you know what it is that you're paying for when counsel charges you hefty fees, because in due fact they are due their weight. But you must know what it is you're retaining them to do. So, in attempting to attain that objective, today I would like to talk about redress available for victims of gender-based violence. Now, we're looking in this area mainly in the field of criminal law. Criminal law is when your actions, you do something that causes harm to another person in the country. Everyone has the right under the Constitution to go about their business without being harmed by another. If you cause harm to that person and you intentionally do so, then you will find the state will find a way to make you pay for it. Let's look at the definition of a crime. A crime is when you have actus reus and mens rea. Actus reus is the act itself, mens rea, mental intention. When you put those two together, there's a crime, and if the case is proven against you, you'll be sentenced. What is gender-based violence? So violence is a crime under the law if the violence results in harm to another. When it's gender-based violence is when the violence is perpetrated against another because of their sex. So that a woman is harmed because she's a woman, not just that she's another human being. And whereas the law does not necessarily identify the female as a particular species of complainant, there are some acts, statutes, which look to this. For example, Section 20 of the Offences Against Persons Act makes it an offense to assault a female. Mind you, the sentence is $2,000. What's the point? Also, Section 3, subsection 1 of the Sexual Offences Act makes it an offense to have sexual intercourse, or rather, penetration of a woman's vagina without her consent. So, under our law, it's not rape if you penetrate a male without his consent. It's only rape if you penetrate a female vagina. The vagina of a female with a penis without her consent. There are a few others, but in the main, the law looks really to any person under the law being harmed by another person. So, there is also, we should talk about the Domestic Violence Act. But this isn't gender-based. It looks to spouse, any spouse. If a spouse harms another spouse, they will be taken into custody and taken before the courts. So what redress do you have as a complainant? If you are harmed by another, you are the complainant, you are the prosecution. Yourself and the police are the prosecution. So you're before the courts. We have developed a philosophy in Jamaica today where mostly anything can be dealt with What is mediation? Mediation is when the two parties get together and they sit with a third party, which is a mediator. Dispute Resolution Foundation is where they do it. I think it's somewhere down South Camp Road. And you sit and you say, you know what? You joke out my eye. I need at least $1 million from you. The other side says, I can't afford $1 million. But is this gender based? No, not necessarily. So you're a female, you stand as complainant before the court. You have been harmed by this person, male or female. You can say to the court, I am minded to accept mediation, I'm minded to accept money in return for my injuries. And the court may or may not accept that you want to do this. In the main, this is done in the RM court. Let's just talk about for a little bit the different tiers of courts in Jamaica. You have the Petty Sessions Court, which are manned by justices of the peace. They are untrained lay magistrates. Then you have the Resident Magistrates Court. Halfway through there are 9 of them. And these are criminal courts. There are resident magistrates civil courts, and their limit is $1 million. But in the main, it's the criminal courts we're talking about. Then you have the High Court of Jamaica, where the serious matters are dealt with. Serious meaning wounding with intent, where somebody chop off your hand, chop out your eye, chop off your foot. Or assault occasioning grievous bodily harm, which is perhaps acid, when people throw acid on each other. That kind of thing. Manslaughter, murder, treason, those are dealt with in the High Court. And then you have the Court of Appeal, where if you have a decision made in the High Court and you don't agree with it, you can appeal to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal, and they will decide whether the verdict should stand or not. So there are some offenses for which the RM has no jurisdiction. These are the serious matters. In the main, they would move through the RM courts, and the RM would hear the evidence and determine whether or not there is sufficient evidence to go before a jury, because that's who hears the case in the High Court. A jury and the High Court judge. High Court judge determines what the law is, jury determines what the facts are. So if the injury suffered by the female is so serious that it must go to the High Court and be tried by a jury, then very seldom will an RM say, I accept mediation. Having said that, in my practice, I have seen where serious offenses are mediated at the RM level. And in fact, the philosophy has not carried through in a fulsome way to the High Court. The High Court really looked to trying the matter. There are times in the High Court where complainants will come and say, I don't wish to proceed anymore. I wish for the matter to come to an end here. And if that's their feeling, then the court will be minded to allow the case to fall. So in the main, there is no peculiar redress for gender-based violence, for females being the target of male or other female violence. There really is no true redress for gender-based violence in Jamaica. The redress available to any complainant, be it male or female, is a jury handing down a guilty verdict in the High Court, or an RM handing down a guilty verdict in the RM court, and him being sentenced. So you get revenge. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, however. So what can you expect? You can expect to sue him. Any person who harms you, whether they're found guilty or not, you are entitled to sue them for the harm they caused you. If, however, you accept mediation in the court, I doubt very much that you could attempt to sue them a second time. What is the moral of the story? Avoid trouble. Although we say in Jamaica, you know, half with trouble, trouble for trouble, trouble you. But as far as is possible.